Welcome back to Bluebird Homestead. My name's Cara. These are the 5 things you need to start brooding your chicks. Maybe you're thinking about getting baby chicks for the first time, and with the crazy egg prices, I know a lot of people are venturing into chicken ownership. So I wanted to share a quick list of the 5 most essential things that you need to start raising your chicks. And leave a comment in the comment box if you're raising baby chicks this year and what breeds you're doing. Number 1 is a brooder box of some sort. This is an enclosure that will keep your chicks safe and keep them protected from predators. Last year we did 2 different methods for our brooder boxes. When we did our 100 meat bird chicks, Ryan had built these big wooden boxes that we set here on the back porch, just out of some scrap lumber we had lying around. And then when we got our layer hens, there weren't quite as many, so I used a big Rubbermaid tote. Whatever brooder box you use, you just want to make sure you have adequate space for all the chicks that you're raising. Obviously, if you're not raising 100 chicks like we were, you don't need something quite that large. The second thing your chicks need is bedding. Since we were raising our chicks on the back porch, I didn't want the back porch to get kind of yucky, so we laid down a few layers of cardboard at the bottom, and we did sort of a deep litter method for our brooder box. On top of the cardboard, we laid down the chicken bedding, and every day we added a fresh layer of bedding on top of that pre-existing layer. That way they always had a clean surface to rest on, and their poop from the previous day was covered up. At the end of their brooding time period, we saved all that bedding and added it to our compost, which then got put back on the garden earlier this spring, so none of it went to waste. Now, if you don't have a super large brooder where you don't need an entire big sheet of cardboard at the bottom, you could also use the puppy pads at the bottom of your brooder, or maybe some paper towels. You just want to make sure that you're keeping the bottom of your brooder clean and adding fresh wood chips on top every day, or replacing those paper towels as they get soiled. You're gonna want some sort of netting or other hardwire cloth or chicken wire of some sort on top of your brooder box to keep your birds from flying out of the brooder box. The meat birds did this a lot more than the layer hens. They also grow a lot faster as well, which may have been part of the issue. They would try to jump out of the brooder box any chance they got whenever we opened up the lid to feed them or change their water, etc. This netting serves 2 purposes. Not only does it keep the meat birds in, but it helps keep predators and other animals out. Since we're brooding our birds outside, this is a slight concern. We're not as concerned about it because it's just right here on our back porch, so it's pretty close to the house, but our cats and our dogs are still very curious about the meat chicks and our layer hens. You could brood your chicks inside the house, but one morning they do produce a lot of dust. They do need good ventilation, so you can't completely enclose them in to prevent the dust. The third thing you need is a source of heat. The chicks are not under a broody hen who can snuggle them and keep them warm, so they do need a source of heat where they can regulate their body temperature until they're fully feathered in. For our meat birds, we use 2 different sources of heat. We used the traditional heat lamps, and then we also used a brooder plate. The brooder plate is the safer option, but it is also much more expensive. We used both of those heat sources because we honestly just didn't want to pay for a second brooder plate. The sun is getting really bright, so don't mind me if I squint. If you do decide to go with a traditional heat lamp, do be careful because they can cause fires, so make sure you keep a close eye on it. And also, they can melt plastic. In the past, we had used one of those big Rubbermaid totes for our layer hens, and we had the heat lamp on the side, and the heat lamp clamp got loosened somehow, and it didn't fall, but it was just touching the side of the plastic rubber tote, and it melted the plastic on the tote. Thankfully, I caught it in time, and no baby chicks were harmed in the process, but that is something you need to be aware of. The heat plate brooder is definitely a safer option. When you're setting up your heat plate or your heat lamp, you want to make sure that your chicks have the opportunity to escape it. You don't want your chicks getting too cold, but you also don't want your chicks getting too hot. You want to make sure that your chicks have plenty of room inside the brooder to move away from the heat lamp if they're getting too warm, and they can snuggle up closer to it if they're getting too cold. The 4th thing on our list is water. Of course, your chicks are going to need some fresh water every day. Because we had 100 plus chickens, we had multiple waterers in their brooder, but one water is perfectly sufficient if you just have a few baby chicks. One little extra thing that we like to add to our waterers is some electrolytes and vitamins for the baby chicks. Your baby chicks were probably just born a few days ago, and you want to make sure you give them the best advantage that they could possibly have. This year and last year, we ordered our meat birds from Murray McMurray Hatchery, and we also ordered their Quick Chick starter electrolyte packet that you add into the water when your baby chicks arrive. When you're first putting your baby chicks into the brooder, we would dip their beaks into the water just to make sure they knew where it was at. And this also gave them that little bit of burst of the electrolytes and the vitamins. Then after we used that initial packet of the Quick Chick vitamin electrolyte mixture, then we would add some raw apple cider vinegar to their waterer. The raw apple cider vinegar just kind of helps with their immune system and keep things healthy in the brooder box. The electrolytes and vitamins is just a bonus that you could add to the water. It is not a requirement. The fifth and final thing that you need for brooding baby chicks is some feed. We personally chose to use a high protein, organic chick starter grower feed, and we fed this to our meat birds the entire time until they were ready to be processed. When your chicks get older, you can start introducing treats and also introducing fresh grass clippings and different things like that. They cannot digest grass and other bugs and treats unless they have some grit to chew on to help break up that food. They don't have teeth like we do, they just swallow things whole. When they're out on fresh grass, they have access to forage around and find rocks and other dirt that can act as grit for helping them digest those treats and grass. But if they're just in a brooder box or in an enclosed coop, you want to make sure you provide them with some grit to help them digest their food. We do like to introduce fresh grass clippings in the brooder box with some grit to help our chicks get accustomed to eating grass and different bugs that may be in the grass before we move them out onto our field. When our meat birds are fully feathered out and the temperatures have warmed up, we will move them out onto grass. This was about 3 weeks of age last year. We are going to be raising quite a lot of baby chicks here soon. They're coming in the mail shortly, so subscribe and stay tuned to our channel for more tips and tricks about how to raise your chickens, and also just to follow along with the process. There are, of course, several other things you could add to this list and more details you could go into, but I was just trying to keep it condensed for you guys. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I hope you guys enjoying raising your chicks this season. Bye, y'all.